It is February 28th, 2023. The year is the 6th of the way over. What are you doing with your life? This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I'm Glenn Rubenstein, joined by Alfred Konuwa. Just us tonight. Issa is entertaining and hosting friends in Puerto Rico while we are here watching NXT and coming to talk about it with you, the people, because we make time in our social lives.
Yeah.
Well, Alfred
Issa is getting emotional. I completely understand Issa taking this time off. She's getting emotionally prepared to say goodbye to Roman Reigns' title run. And she's probably also trying to decide what she wants at Applebee's, which a lot of great menu items at Applebee's.
You know, a lot of restaurants have trimmed their menu back to try and keep it simple, but not Applebee's.
Yeah, the categories of food on Applebee's menu is bigger than some menus. They've got pasta, they've got chicken, they've got seafood, handcrafted burgers. My goodness.
You know, and I always say, by all means, if you're at a general restaurant that doesn't specialize in seafood or pasta, it's a good move to order both.
That's a good best practice. I like that.
Yeah, get seafood at the random hole in the wall restaurant that doesn't specialize in seafood. Live on the edge. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Here we are tonight. NXT. This was a really good show tonight. They're making Roadblock. They're making Roadblock feel huge.
Yeah, they did a good job building up these matches. There's some intrigue. They're making it seem like Shawn Michaels is coming out of retirement. They definitely tease that. I don't think it's going to happen, but they definitely made me interested for next week. I think next week's going to be a very hot show.
Somebody, and I apologize for forgetting your name. Someone tweeted at me or DM'd me and said, "What if the announcement for Stand and Deliver? What if HBK's surrogate is Gargano, comes back, Grayson Waller?" And that is brilliant. That makes all the sense in the world. I think that would be.
I'd like to see that.
Gargano.
If it's going to be a surrogate situation, it should be a big deal. It should be either somebody from the main roster or maybe like a free agent, maybe a Dragon Lee. But the problem with that is I don't know how familiar this audience would be with those types of free agents, even a Jay White or somebody.
I mean, it feels like right now, and I think maybe this is part of the reason why NXT is doing so well is, I mean, this isn't the least reliant they've been on outside talent, but it's a really good balance right now. And I feel that, I don't know. I mean, I feel some of their homegrown talents are the most over in the company at the moment.
They're doing a good job. What I really like about this roster, they've got a lot of these NIL talents who are like super athletes that are now starting to come along. But in addition to their athletic ability, which is only less than half the battle, there's a lot of great eclectic personalities. Like Tiffany Stratton is an NIL super athlete, but she's got a great personality. I think Ruca is lovable, and there's a lot of these athletes who are doing a good job endearing themselves as characters.
Yeah. And I was making this point on Twitter. I was getting into it with a few people, including someone else who covers NXT for another outlet. And I was saying that consistently, week in and week out, NXT is the most entertaining professional wrestling show on all of television. Certainly that I watch. Wow. I do not feel like I waste my time watching it. And even when they swing and miss, which they do often, it is still entertaining. They take a lot of swings. They try a lot of things. Maybe because the stakes are lower, they're willing to experiment more. And I feel that the balance of wrestling, promos, skits, storyline is just better. And I feel like they're trying, and it's just more. The output is far more diverse. And yes, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But it's just there's a certain sameness that most other wrestling shows have right now. I mean, SmackDown has the Bloodline storyline, which is great. And they got everything else. You know, Raw is doing things with a few select talents well, but it's a 3-hour show. Dynamite has some really hot matches and some hot feuds week in and week out. But because of that, Rampage, I think, often suffers. But I don't know. Maybe it's because of lower stakes. I mean, where does NXT rank for you in terms of overall enjoyment and pleasure from watching wrestling?
It's a good question. I would put it behind Dynamite and SmackDown, but maybe above Raw even. Raw's gotten hot and been very good, but like you said, it is a 3-hour show, and there are points of Raw where I'll zone out, even though I am watching, but that doesn't happen with NXT. I feel like I'm engaged more with NXT. And I think Rampage has a lot to learn from an NXT, only because NXT is not an A show. They don't have top-tier talent, which is always used as an excuse for Rampage, but that's not why Rampage can't draw. It's because there's no type of continuity with Rampage. Every week, it's just a buffet of matches between random talent. as opposed to NXT, which they're building up storylines and they're peaking toward special events, which I think if Rampage just ran a show similar to that, they'd do fine in the ratings because people would be engaged with the week-to-week storytelling.
Kelvin R. Alexander, $5 super chat saying NXT delivers for me every week. I'll tell you what it is. It's like you're going on a long car ride. Now, would you rather listen to a top 40 station where you're going to hear a wide variety of music? Some of it's good and some of it's bad, but even the bad stuff is going to kind of entertain you. Where you're like, oh, this is kind of terrible, but it's also quirky and fun, and some of the good stuff's really good. Or you have that friend that's like, no, man, Fat Records, this new band came out, and it's good, and it's a punk band, and they're really good, and you put it on, and it's just like, dun, 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 and it's just like the same shit for 12 songs. And you're like, yes, this is really good, but it's also boring, and I just want to throw the CD out on the road right now.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the radio, but if those are my options indefinitely, because I'm going to eventually hear something that I like, that, maybe get through some stuff I don't like to get there, but at least I'll find something that I connect with.
And I'll tell you, man, we've been watching a ton of MTV Spain lately, and we love the rock stuff, but even the reggaeton and the pop that comes on there, even the stuff that I'm like, well, this isn't my thing. Like, after a while, I'm like, no, there's some kind of weird brilliance to this. Like the music, just one music video with like Mike Towers and this dude, and they're like cleaning a guy's pool, and they see he has a recording studio, so they stop cleaning the pool and go record the song in his recording studio. And at the end, you see the guy whose mansion was pull up to them when they're at a party, and you think, like in my Beavis and Butthead voice, he's gonna roll out the window and be like, hey, you ass wipes, you did a terrible job cleaning my pool. But no, he's there to be like, I listened to your recording and that was pretty dope. And then at the end, they have a mansion and people are showing up to clean their pool. Now, I don't even like this song, but I love this video because I've seen it so much. It's wacky, it's weird, but I'm into it. And I like
it's so descriptive. I really like that description. And I finally got around to watching the new Beavis and Butthead because I just didn't want it to ruin the old one. I really like it. I like what they've done. I think they've advanced it to the modern day. Actually, Beavis and Butthead was before its time in terms of this kind of mystery science theater commentary on what's going on. It fits in like a glove doing that with YouTube and viral clips. So I really like it.
I'll give you an example. There's a new artist from New Zealand called Benee, Benee, and she has a song called Green Honda. This song is kind of dumb, but again, it's also brilliant.
Right.
Like it just gets stuck in your head, It's like Armani White's Billie Eilish. Is it a great song, or is it just so quirky and weird that it grows on you?
I'll tell you what, it's a great beat. I think he sampled Nore, but it's a great beat.
Also, why does he rap like he has a British accent? Dude's from Pennsylvania.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I would have never guessed he's from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was like, MTV Push is still showing that 6 months later. He's the MTV Push artist. But no, my point is, though, the variety format is what makes wrestling great. And if you look back on the Attitude Era, which everyone holds up as like, oh my God, the best time in wrestling, there were a lot of highs and lows. And in fact, a lot of the stuff that you loved, now you look back and you're like, oh, this really didn't age that well. But the sameness is killing wrestling. Sameness is what makes wrestling boring. This idea that, well, they're a really great wrestler and that's their gimmick, and then go put on 5-star matches, and Meltzer pleasures himself while not only watching the match but talking about it later because we found it that enjoyable. Like that's not a TV show. Actually, maybe for some people that's a TV show. That's not a TV show I want to watch.
Meltzer needs to start an OnlyFans where he pleasures himself to 5-star matches. I think he gets some subscribers to that. I'm telling you, there's some weirdos out there in the internet wrestling community.
People are like, just describe it again in the Tokyo Dome, but just describe it slower in a more graphic detail.
Do it with your hand around my neck.
But no, I'm telling you though, man, it's NXT is great because in some weird way, it's not that they don't give a shit, they're not afraid to fail.
Right.
And could you imagine if the SmackDown writers and the SmackDown sometimes is at its greatest. I mean, Sami Zayn with the Bloodline is one of those like, well, this could be a disaster, but it was brilliant. Sami Zayn versus Jackass could have been a disaster, but it was brilliant. A lot of these storylines that we love, like, are the things that are the riskiest. And it's funny because it just further underlines with how diverse the entertainment factor is with NXT. It just also what makes Bron Breakker just look like a glass of milk filled with sand. That's how bland he looks like.
I am biased toward Bron, but I thought Bron was great tonight, and it made me realize that this guy just needs some friends. They need to give this guy people to work with, not only in terms of opponents, but if he's just got some boys, and the Diamond Mine had the same kind of frat boy vibe as he does, so they fit in like a glove. I love these three together.
I was gonna say it was gonna be Braun is gonna make Dynamite or Braun is gonna make Diamond Mine look like Entourage by comparison, like with charisma. Braun is gonna somehow his lack of charisma is gonna give Diamond Mine and the Creed brothers charisma.
I resent Braun not having charisma. He may not be like the most charismatic person on the roster, but he has charisma. It's there. He can talk. He just needs to, he needs stuff to work with. That's all.
It's gonna be like Entourage, but everybody's Turtle.
Turtle was lovable. He was a lovable turtle.
Hey, he scored Ronda Rousey in that movie.
Yeah, there you go. In the movie wasn't that great, but at least Turtle came up.
Occasionally I think back, I'm like, why did I go see that opening day? Like first show, why was I there? Why was that? I think I had the day off at the time. I was working an office job and I was like, I'm gonna go see the Entourage movie. It's very weird. Anyhow, what's going on in the news?
Honestly, not much. It was a very slow news day. The ratings are delayed. And the only really thing that came out is Kenny Omega did this interview recently on the Sessions with Renee Paquette. And he actually did talk about the all-out brawl, at least what he could share, saying that it was a weird vibe for him and that it was unfortunate that happened, made it sound like they were untenable differences. And at the same time, CM Punk on Instagram had some fun with the fan who's getting mad at CM Punk, and CM Punk in response said that he will wrestle again just to upset you. So obviously still some tensions around this all-out brawl. What do you make of CM Punk, Kenny Omega? Do we see them cross paths again in AEW, Glenn?
I think the problem is CM Punk knows that if he goes back to AEW, he has very little flex, very little influence. In fact, so much so that if I was Tony Khan and I really wanted to bring CM Punk back, I would make that a storyline. If CM Punk comes back, he's booked shitty, and I would make it seem like CM Punk goes off script. I think that would be the best possible use of CM Punk right now, is to do like the penance of CM Punk storyline, and where he just can't take it anymore and leads a revolt. The problem is there's a chance of upstaging MJF, who is AEW's best homegrown asset.
I mean, I like the idea of we're going to have him lose a bunch to see if he's going to go crazy again or whatnot. I don't like the idea of reality-based booking. That's what got us in this mess in the first place.
Yeah, but he's not going to show up and just lose a bunch. But no, what I'm telling you is like they're gonna do it. It'll be scripted, but they will make it seem like it's another pipe bomb.
Sure, I know. That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm not saying that they're going to go in there and shoot. I'm saying exactly what you are.
It'd be great if you went in there and shot.
It's all going to be based on reality. It hits. We've seen this time and again in AEW where they'll do something based on reality. It'll hit too close to home and it'll turn into a shoot. We saw that was the story of 2022 for AEW, and they really need to get away from all these realistic storylines. My favorite thing in AEW that happens constantly now is with MJF will share some cockamamie story from his real life, and then all of his advocates will be like, "Oh no, this is based on reality. This is real." I'm not impressed by that. Like, get creative. Okay, so it's based on real life. Do you have any creativity in your brain that you can create some story that maybe we can like? Iron Man's not based on real life and it makes billions of dollars. So like, let's get creative instead of all this reality-based booking.
Yes. I've just had this flashback. We're talking about car rides. Of like driving in the car with some bandmates at the time. And I think we were listening to Marshall Mathers LP. And my bandmate, and I liked Eminem, but my bandmate like insisted on running commentary and be like, he and Kim got back together. And like this song takes place before the other song, before Bonnie and Clyde. And the song about his mom, he's got issues with mom. Yeah, it's just like, dude, I don't need to, I can hear the music and make my own conclusions. I don't need you to sit there chiming in. You're not a hype man.
Yeah, this is not a DVD. We don't need the DVD overlay of everything.
But there is that. But that being said, I think what NXT did tonight with Gigi Dolin's promo, we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Like, holy shit. Was that like just that was so real. And again, I don't even know the real story behind that. I'm assuming that's coming from a very personal place. But that injected so much reality to it. That's a good example of a swing, right? This wasn't and not to take anything away from Lacey Evans and her own hardships and struggles, but this wasn't like produced package with an angle of now I'm going to talk about this and how I overcame adversity and here's the music. This was just like out of nowhere.
Yeah. And they connect. This is a good example of reality-based booking, is that they didn't just rely on it being a true story, which I'm guessing a lot of it was. They connected that to the storyline breakup that they had. And I thought they did a good job with Gigi, especially because they knew they had to make her into a babyface and a clearly defined babyface in this feud. And I thought she did a great job with that subject matter.
Yeah, that was amazing and real. and just felt raw. And, you know, I said this on Twitter. I think that feud now is too big to finish at Roadblock. I hope it doesn't finish at Roadblock.
Yeah, I highly doubt it will. I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, something's got to happen. I'd love it if Mandy came back and interfered, but I don't think
there you go.
Do that.
I'm even guessing that Stand and Deliver could be their third match. I mean, I think it'll be a situation where they're going to do the Roadblock match. Maybe a few weeks down the road, they'll do another one, and then the rubber match will be at Stand and Deliver.
But just in terms of unexpected moments and really going there, that just high praise for them. Bringing it up,
winning this feud, by the way. It's a
Jacy
Jane's starting to look like Jacy Jannetty right now. She better step her game up.
Kelvin R. Alexander, $5 saying Uncle Dave's philosophy and his wrestling taste have ruined the business.
Oh man,
work rate doesn't draw. Characters and good storylines draw. I mean, you know, it's funny though, because I think NXT at its peak was the perfect mix of that. Somehow on an hour-long show each week, they managed to give you amazing wrestling and amazing storylines and promos and segments. They figured it out. I would say NXT from 2014 to 2017 like was incredible. And I think actually, so here we go. Here's a way to draw heat. I actually think the Adam Cole era and the Undisputed era actually took that down because they were trying to be AEW. They were trying to be,
I agree.
They were trying to be the Dave Meltzer experience every week of just here's some great indie wrestling. And we did see some characters break through, but I think they lost track of the fact ultimately this is a variety show that you're putting on. This is the Muppets. This is SNL.
That was their chance to pivot because they really, in order to win that war, and it's crazy they never figured this out throughout the entire war. The move was to be different from AEW and say, okay, they're doing all these matches. Let's focus way more on the storylines or whatnot. But they just kind of tried to out AEW, and it didn't quite work out there. AEW had the much better show from that standpoint. And I agree with what some of Kelvin's saying. I will not go all the way and say work rate doesn't drop, period. There have been examples. I mean, PWG does a good job on a smaller scale just by work rate alone. I will say work rate by itself historically was not going to draw. But storyline and characters, it's good to have that mix, but storyline and characters can draw and carry a storyline. Even if the work rate in the match is going to be bad, we've seen countless examples of two bad wrestlers in a good storyline drawing money, and the match may not be that great, but they got people in the building with the story they told. So I think storyline and characters is far superior to work rate.
I don't know if I've talked about this before. If you look at guitar players like Imve Malmsteen, rappers like Cannabis, you can have the most technical proficiency with your instrument, but if you can't write a catchy song, people by and large don't care.
That's the parallel. There's this term, especially in the battle rap community, they call it real hip hop, where it's like Jay-Z ain't real hip hop. Like, you know, like all these mainstream rappers who connect with people. It's like, that's not real hip hop. This is real hip hop when I'm, you know, the lyrical miracle. That's real hip hop. Where it's, the catchy song, the hook. There's a lot of very talented lyricists who are also able to become mainstream rappers.
I mean, shit, Wu-Tang figured out that you can have 18 rappers on a song doing 32 bars each. But if you have a fun shout-along chorus, it's still a good song. Like, it's still catchy. It brings you back, even if, you know, some of the bars aren't doing it for you. But I think that's the thing, man. I think that it's really about how you channel that talent into something that's packaged enough. I'm not saying you have to strip it away and make it completely a saccharine, sterile experience. But and I think, man, like, I don't know, SmackDown, if Roman's taking time off or whatever's happening after this Bloodline thing, SmackDown's in trouble. Because without that Bloodline storyline, I mean, you want to watch, I mean, Bray and Bobby last night, that segment with Muscle Man Dance was great, but it's like thinking about some of the other things we've been seeing on SmackDown lately, and that don't seem like it can carry a show.
I don't think SmackDown would be in trouble if Roman took time off because, okay, when we say time off, Roman's doing that now. Roman is essentially a part-timer. He does not show up on TV every week. They're always able to create something interesting. They popped a 2.4 million rating this week without him, and they've consistently done great ratings. Now, that's not to say that Roman Reigns does not matter to this storyline, but he's antithetical in the way that the Bloodline is bigger than any wrestler that's part of the Bloodline, including Roman Reigns. That's a mistake a lot of people made with the Sami Zayn mini fake controversy, is that thinking that, oh, Sami's got to be the guy. It's like this Bloodline storyline, they could take Jay and say Jay's going to be the interesting guy this week, and Jay will draw a number. They could take Jimmy and say this week we're going to have Jimmy Uso say something, and he'll draw a number. It's this Bloodline storyline that they can do without Roman Reigns.
What do you think? I mean, in a weird way, I think the way you keep it going is that Sammy and Kevin win those titles, and then the family comes for revenge, and just every week you got someone else that got to wrestle.
I mean, that'd be cool. I would like the bloodline to slowly crumble, and I would like Jey Uso because it kind of made me think of it. He's kind of taking a Sting role where he's in the rafters, he's neutral, and I hope the Jey Uso character starts to really evolve to where it's different. He doesn't have to paint his face, but I want the character to evolve and be different. And then by SummerSlam, Jey Uso and Roman Reigns could be a hell of a match.
No, can I give you the worst fantasy booking of this whole thing?
Get it.
Is that it's SummerSlam. The Rock comes back to challenge Sami Zayn for destroying his family.
I love it. Let's go.
The storytelling would be great.
Yeah, they'd be able to do it. Hey, listen, I think that'd be a hell of a match. That'd be one of the best opponents The Rock could ever work with if he comes back.
Oh my God, that would be incredible. But okay, I guess we got to talk about NXT, which was great tonight. So, but I think we got it. I think people know where we park our garage on our philosophy, what garage we park our cars in on our philosophy with wrestling. So Wesley versus Nathan Frazier tonight, and holy shit, did they open up a hot match.
God damn that Wesley is on fire, man. I like what Nathan Frazier. He's one of those like jump off the page athletes, but Wesley's on fire right now.
I wasn't that into Nathan Frazier before. I think I called him like blonde Heath Slater at one point. But he tonight was great and justified. This is awesome chance.
Yes, very justified. This is awesome chance. Stay tuned to NXT on USA Network.
TK should really, if Tony Khan had a sense of humor, he would tweet that.
Yeah,
but he doesn't have a sense of humor.
See, that's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be trolling these other companies, but in a very subtle way, not necessarily going after people and getting mad.
Yeah. Oh no, he'd be like piped in. This is awesome chance.
Yeah.
For a mid match at best.
And then the rating for NXT would jump.
Kelvin, $5 super chat. Alfred is right. The Bloodline storyline's like a machine. It always produces interesting television.
Yeah, they could just keep spinning these things off. And one of the things, like the Usos could each go off on their own and I think be stars. Even Solo Sikoa. I think there's a lot of people who could spin off and be big stars coming out of this. I'm interested to see what they do with Roman Reigns when the Bloodline's over, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the redemption of Roman Reigns arc, I think, would be phenomenal. But he really has to hit bottom.
Yeah.
Maybe lose to Baron Corbin again.
It's funny you say that, Glenn, because like everybody's saying how Baron Corbin's getting buried, but he keeps teasing that he's the only person who beat Roman Reigns. So either Roman Reigns will like beat him in 10 seconds to get his heat back, or maybe that is because I could see Roman Reigns post Cody Rhodes if he loses, and when he loses to Cody Rhodes, I could see him losing to Sammy. I think Sammy needs to get that win back. Losing to Jay, and then hell yeah, he loses to fucking Baron Corbin, and then we're off to the races.
Could you imagine if Roman then is walking around with the stained shirt, like asking for money? His wife kicked him out. His family won't talk to him, you know?
So Roman has to do the homeless gimmick now?
He has to get redemption somehow.
Will he come back as Happy Roman?
It does kind of speak. I mean, Baron Corbin's the most extreme example of that, but they've done that gimmick before. If somebody falls down, they come back, they get it, yada, yada. I mean, so with Roman, who knows? But no, this opening match tonight was absolutely incredible. Lots of great spots in this. Wesley is on fire right now. And man, I would like to see him with that main title because I just think as North American champion, I think he is crushing it. And he is a charisma machine and would just be phenomenal.
WWE needs to invest. I don't necessarily have to see him on the main roster, but I think they should earmark him for that. But even if he's going to be in NXT for the time being, which I have no problem with, they really need to invest in him as like one of their big stars because what he has, same thing with Willow Nightingale in AEW. These types don't come along every day in terms of a natural babyface who can not only immediately connect with the crowd with their personality and how they are and being genuine, but also the way he wrestles is just incredible. This guy is such an athlete.
Yeah. And after, and I didn't mind this. I normally hate this, the mutual respect after, but Lee and Frazier, Lee helping him up and them hugging, like this felt tonight like these guys knew what they did tonight. It was really, really incredible. Very good match.
Love this.
Great start to the show. And then Brooks and Dunn have lost their mojo. Because Jensen, things haven't been the same with Kiana James because of the suspicions. But they're gonna take on into Sheer, and during this time, we had that brawl happen with Axiom and Walker.
That was a funny brawl because like there was this point where after Axiom got shoved, he like jumped up and then like disappeared off. It was almost like a dog jumping up in the air where he tried to pounce on Hank Walker. But I like this brawl backstage. I really like that. I'm into Hank Walker. I think they should have waited until they put him in ring gear. I kind of like the idea of the man off the street being a wrestler. But I'm into Hank Walker. He seems, personality-wise, he seems very genuine.
But into Sheer getting that win tonight. They're on their way. Yeah,
they're building them for something. They're going to feud with the Creeds, and then we'll see if they're able to win that if they go for the tag titles. But they're definitely building them up, putting them with Jinder Mahal.
Absolutely. We had Nathan Frazier being checked on the medical office, and then Katan Chance came running. And I like how they did this. At first, I was like, "Oh, is this NXT Anonymous making its return?" They dropped that gimmick really quick. But we had behind the scenes, and Wendy Chu was attacked in the NXT parking lot. The most dangerous per capita. The NXT parking lot has more violent crimes than anywhere else in the world.
It is the murder capital of pro wrestling. It's undefeated. That NXT parking lot, they've got to shut it down. One of these days, they should just put a bunch of cones and like caution tape around it and like paint the body outline so that we just know how dangerous it is.
I mean, I like that it's become a thing. I like how this has become a running joke in NXT. This is some of the best just comedy continuity, if you think about it, that they've been doing this back since one of the first takeovers.
Yeah, parking lot of doom. And I like they really only do this with NXT. It's not like WWE bastardized this on Raw and SmackDown. It's the NXT parking lot is where the stuff goes down.
Even Samoa Joe that time yelling out, "Get better security."
And they still didn't listen to him.
But hopefully Wendy Chu is okay. She was clutching her arm. So Gigi Dolin, slightly different look coming out tonight. I was talking about putting a final nail in the coffin of toxic attraction. Talked about the pain her mom put her through, including physical abuse. Talked about running away from home. I mean, this was just so emotional, and the crowd was with her from the beginning. But by the end of that, I don't know. I almost think, I know Tiffany Stratton versus Roxanne is going to be the match, but I think after this promo tonight, Gigi Dolin is the biggest female babyface in all of NXT.
100%. She knocked this out of the park, and there was a lot riding on this. I really do feel like that this feud kind of relied on this promo being good because Jacy Jane was fine, but again, they've really accelerated this split to where it's very hard to invest in it and cheer for either of them. They've been heels for so long that it's really hard to get invested in one of these two as a true babyface. And I thought Gigi Dolin did an about face, and she completely endeared herself as a babyface. These people were going crazy for that promo. She mentioned how they're never going to hear that Toxic Attraction song again, which is good because she did come out to it. And I was thinking that's not really a fit for her to come out to this music. So I'm guessing she's going to get some cool punk music. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm here for it. This is going to be a good feud now that they have a clearly defined babyface to go with the heel and Jacy Jane.
And I have to give Gigi Dolin further. I mean, it's going to be tough for anything we see this weekend in terms of promos to top this. I think emotional, real promos. This is great, but I just also want to commend her as a performer to be able to express something that real about her own pain and trauma, given that she didn't know what she was going to be facing from that audience tonight. She hoped, I'm sure, that it would go as well as it did, but we haven't really heard from her since the breakup. And that NXT audience, they're not the biggest assholes on earth, but sometimes they've done a what chant or two. They've been a little rude and dismissive. So I think the fact that she did that not knowing how the audience was going to react, sets in a way a new precedent for just really opening up to an audience and having that bravery. And I really commend her for that tonight.
Yeah, it's always a good idea, especially as a babyface, to get vulnerable with something that people can really connect with. It would have sucked if that blew up in her face.
No, that would have been. I would be on here shaming the NXT audience if they had messed with her during that tonight. Because again, this wasn't pre-taped. She didn't know. No, this came off as very real.
Yeah.
Kelvin, $2 super chats, and Gigi had to beat those
Jannetty charges. I like that. Every tag team should have to go to Marty Jannetty court to see who's Marty and Sean. And to that point, let me just say, as somebody who grew up watching Marty Jannetty was talented and really could have been a single star. And they really did try with Marty Jannetty, just with Shawn. He just had too many issues behind the scenes and he kind of flamed out. But this guy was a hell of a hand, a hell of a worker. And he could have been right there with Shawn Michaels. He beat Shawn Michaels for the IC title coming out of that feud. But he was just too much of a head case. So shout out to Marty Jannetty, who did murder a guy, according to Marty Jannetty.
That still is probably the most what I mean, I don't want to say most because this is professional wrestling, but that's top 5 WTF stories that I've had to cover in my 7 years doing this podcast.
I'll never forget it. That's one I'll never forget covering. Like, wait, Marty Jannetty just admitted to this?
Yeah. Jonathan Torres wants to know, I want to know if Glenn actually thinks their names are Brooks.
Do you know the real names, Glenn?
Yeah, it's Briggs and Jensen, but it's Brooks Jensen. And we just started calling that. I started calling the Creed brothers Creed. I think there was a period of time where I worked in every Creed song title I could think of when they were actually hot in this space. So Diamond Mine's like no more, right? Like
no, they are. They even had the lower third there. We ask this every episode, but Diamond Mine is very much still intact. They even teased a reunion with Gable Stevens' brother, or Damon Kemp. Which I thought was hilarious. I thought Damon Kemp was great in that segment, but Diamond Mine is still intact.
What's up with Roderick Strong?
I have no idea. I think what happened to him in storyline? Did they ever resolve that?
I just think he just disappeared one week.
Wasn't he stretchered out and we never saw him again?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Is he still with this company?
This is how the Undisputed Era ends.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Shradeep Sengupta saying good morning from India. Your podcast is the only one I watch for wrestling. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, Shradeep.
And that Tiffany mentioned that people should stay out of the parking lot. Tiffany Stratton solving mysteries tonight. Like if she wasn't going to be champ soon, I think that should be a gimmick where she has a detective agency.
I like that too. I don't like that she said that. And if they're not going to pay that out, then that's going to be very disappointing. Because when she said that, I thought that made so much sense in terms of Tiffany Stratton being a detective.
Like, what's up with Stevie Turner? We didn't hear from her this week.
We haven't heard from her in a couple of weeks.
I thought she was on last week in this segment.
I don't know if she was, but I really like her gimmick, but she's kind of gone away.
Yeah. So I almost wonder if they think type wise that if like this has happened before, right? I mean, Gigi's gotten comparisons to Becky because of hair color. Like if Tiffany Stratton is going to be the blonde character, that they don't want anyone to have a similar look.
Well, I will say a lot of the blondes who are or were featured prominently, like a Carmella, they've changed their hair color. So,
yeah, no, they think about this. I mean, WWE looks at this like they're designing, you know, a superhero line, and it's like you can't have people with similar gimmicks, outfits. I mean, I'm just completely spitballing here on this, but I think Stevie's great. Like, I think she can absolutely wrestle. Yeah, I think she has a bright future, but maybe right now with Sol Ruca having so much momentum behind her, I'll tell you, that roster, even though NXT features more women than any other wrestling show, like the competition for a spot is still fierce. It's just as fierce as anything else because they just have such a plethora of talent.
That's good.
So the Gigi promo was so good. But yeah, this can't end at Roadblock. Gigi needs her moment. So we had a Chase U video. Duke's encouraging Thea Hale. Schism appeared on the screen, which I kind of got scared by.
Yeah, how did this happen? What did they get in the AV department?
Yeah. Thea Hale still shook. But we're gonna have Chase U versus Schism or Roadblock, which is good because I'm telling you, Thea Hale has to say she's going to slay her demon, the one demon being Ava Rain. That has to happen Mania weekend 1-on-1.
I think this is going to be where Duke Hudson turns on Chase U.
Probably.
I don't know if they save that for Stand and Deliver, but I'm thinking it'll be Duke Hudson versus Andre Chase at Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, that could be good. Should bring back Bodie.
Yeah. I mean,
I
think he's learned his lesson. Yeah, he's learned his lesson. Bring him back.
Did we ever find out why he was released? Oh, I think
behavior issues. He was showing up late. Just, you know, it's kind of, he's very young, so they're probably trying to teach him a lesson, and he'll come back in 60 days or something.
But yeah, Chase U versus Schism, that's gonna be great. But Thea needs to conquer this. Mako Satomura versus Zoe Stark. Man, see, this is tough.
Match.
Zoe has been on fire. I even think Nikita being out and Zoe able to sort of hold that over her head. Like, I feel like Zoe had all this momentum. This has got to kind of suck for her that Tiffany Stratton's going to get that match Mania weekend, because it seemed like Zoe was going to get another shot.
Yeah, and it also sucks for Zoe that Nikita Lyons got hurt. So she's just kind of in no woman's land. So now she's in that role where she's a setup woman. But I also think that WWE is giving her a look for the main roster. I could see her competing in the Women's WrestleMania Battle Royal, and I think she fit in just at home working on the Royal Rumble. I think the main roster could use Zoe Stark in that women's division. I think Zoe Stark and Bianca Belair would be such fire.
No, I think she's great. Mako won this match. And I see, this is the thing, though. Mako got the win tonight. Mako ain't getting the win next week.
We don't think. I'm not completely convinced she's going to lose that match. I think if they could tell a story here.
If Mako, for some reason, had lost tonight, I would have thought, oh, maybe. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see what happens.
Had to make a show. Yeah, Roxanne has to be considered the major favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if she won. But the door is open for Mako to pull the upset.
I think Mako chasing to get it. Well, so if Mako loses, but puts Roxanne like to the ultimate test, then Roxanne loses to Tiffany Stratton and Mako coaches Roxanne to get it back. I think that could be a very compelling storyline.
I like that. That's cool. Because I really did like, I wish they would have done this for longer. I wish the story was that every week Mako's like running Roxanne into the ground to where she's too weak.
But this was good. This was a very good match. And I'm really looking forward to Mako versus Roxanne. I hope that gets a very long time next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good match.
No, absolutely. But again, I just have trouble believing that Mako's going to lose to Roxanne. And this is no disrespect to Roxanne, but it's like, if you just look at like everything Mako has done and accomplished, unless she slips on a banana peel, how does, I just don't.
I mean, that's probably it. Roxanne is going to roll her up or get the better of her or outsmart her somehow. I could see that. I definitely don't. I don't know. Maybe she will win with the Pop Rocks, but I just think they're kind of doing the student teacher with these two. And I think the student best of teacher, she'll just roll her up. What
if Zoe interferes in some way that causes Mako to lose his revenge for losing tonight?
I could see that. Zoe's a heel, and maybe she'll interfere and cost Roxanne the match. Who knows?
Yeah. George Bartley saying Zoe did house shows this weekend.
Yeah, they've been giving her a look. There's rumors that she's main roster bound.
She's really good. I think that the challenge is that, man, on SmackDown and to a lesser extent Raw, it's just they don't go really far beyond the belts.
Yeah. They don't do a good job building out that women's division. Although I will say this, on Raw, they're actually dedicating themselves to telling some stories with the mid-card women, like with Candice LeRae and Nikki Cross. They're doing something with them that I think is going to end up being really cool. So I like that. So they need to do more of that, though, because I do agree on SmackDown, it's very thin because it is a shorter show, so women are going to get shortchanged more. But it is a very thin roster in terms of the stories they're telling with the women on that show.
So we had the update on Wendy Chu, who's being looked at in the medical office, and then Tiffany Stratton was saying people should stay out of the parking lot. Kaden Carter and Katana Chance were there and said things.
Is this the same person is this like a serial attacker? Is this the same person who attacked Nikita Lyons, or are we doing two different parking lot storylines? Because that would be a little disjointed.
I think we're led to believe that Tiffany Stratton's behind all of it, right?
Possibly. It seems too obvious, but I could see it.
But that's where I liked Stratton like connecting. Yeah, I just thought this was fun. But then Katana Chance challenged her to a match. Then we had Saul Ruca. First then we had the Creed brothers discussing Indus challenge. They ran to Damon Kemp. They ran to Bron Breakker. And so it's going to be a 6-man tag at Roadblock with Bron Breakker and Creed versus Jinder Mahal and Indus Sher.
I think this is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be like a demolition derby. I hope nobody gets hurt, but I think this is going to be a very highly physical. People are going to beat the hell out of each other. I'm here for it.
They were, and that's all it needs to be, because I don't think these guys, Creed and Braun, aren't charismatic enough to tell like a deep story with this.
I think they are.
You think they are?
Especially.
And then what would more of that dialogue sound like? Bro.
I mean, that's what it was tonight. They were just, it just seemed like Bron Breakker fit in with these guys. He should have been a Creed brother. They're all just like, they're frat boys. They're like meatheads.
Yeah, they're just devoid of charisma. It just smells like creatine and ball sweat.
I feel like they give each other wedgies.
I think Indashir and Jinder are going to win that match next week.
I could see it. It does seem like they're really building up Indashir. Just watching the show, it seems like they're going somewhere with that. Braun's not going to get pinned, but I could see one of the Creed brothers getting pinned.
Yeah. So Saul Ruca versus Elektra Lopez with Valentina Feroz like betraying Elektra tonight, not giving her the brass knuckles. Saul Ruca getting that win with the Soul Snatcher. I mean, Saul Ruca is incredible, and that like it's very interesting, her ascent from her debut on NXT Level Up. I think with Nikita Lyons out and there being like a spot open, I think that she is getting so much momentum right now. Yeah, it's almost tough to imagine. I mean, in a weird way, she's the biggest threat to Tiffany Stratton as the next NXT Women's Champion, because I think the momentum is going to be there for Soul probably very soon after WrestleMania, where people want her to be women's champion.
Yeah, she's getting more over every week. She's getting better every week. I was kind of nervous about this match, given the experience level. It was fine. It wasn't the greatest match ever, but they did fine. And I was very impressed with Soul Ruca, and the fans are doing the Soul chant, the Soul. So she's really I think she's gonna be a superstar. I just hope WWE doesn't rush her to the main roster, because she's not ready for that yet.
No.
But she's an incredible athlete, and she's gonna be huge. She's gonna be a huge star.
Calvin Alexander, $2 saying, what if the parking lot attacker is Mandy?
I'd have no problem with that.
I like Wrestling as Art saying Cora Jade's behind it. We haven't seen Cora, it feels like.
Oh, that actually, I didn't even think about that. And that's probably why we haven't seen Cora Jade. Yeah, I think it's Cora Jade, though.
Guys, I know I'm preaching the choir here because we're here watching an NXT podcast. NXT is so fucking good. And I'm pissed off that people diss this show. Yes, there are some weak episodes. Yes, not every gimmick or segment lands, but we don't talk about any other roster with this excitement of, oh, maybe this person's doing this and maybe these three people could be the next champion. I mean, like, the NXT roster is not only deep, but they are utilizing more of their roster than any other promotion right now.
Yeah, that's good for the future, and it makes you excited about WWE's future, looking at some of these NXT athletes. And
except don't want to leave NXT. Because they're not going to be as good on the main roster.
I think we'll see how much longer Triple H remains in charge, because I have my doubts about that. But if he does and the continuity is there, I think that's going to really help. That's going to be the big difference. One of the biggest reasons a lot of these NXT talents did not translate to the main roster is they're going into a completely different regime, having to learn a completely different offense. Whereas with Triple H, the pipeline would be far smoother.
Yeah. Oh, we had Dijakovic respond to Tony D'Angelo about the prison match.
I'm not a great big fan of this character of Dijak. I love his wrestling, but I didn't mind this promo. I thought he was fine. I'm still cheering for Tony D'Angelo, though.
Tony D'Angelo's so good. Like,
yeah.
And I know we've talked about this before. I think originally, like, it was goofy and we kept saying it was really good, and then somehow it really became great.
It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It just like, ended up becoming great.
When he locked Lash Legends producer in the trunk, that is when this went from like goofy fun, like stupid fun, to this is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's when we found out he was about that life.
When he came out to do the match, did he try like palming the ref $100 and said, "Get yourself a little something"? Oh my God. I love Tony D'Angelo.
Is Tony D'Angelo the Undertaker of NXT? And by that, I mean, like, we talk about how he needs to get this title. I don't think he needs a title. He's got enough of a universe around him.
He's the Don of NXT.
Yeah, he's the Don. He's like the father. He's the Undertaker.
Oh, man. And no scripts. I Reggie, I'm sorry that we killed scripts as a gimmick. I'm sorry.
I thought it was so funny. There are two things that struck me out: that the Black History Month graphic, obviously Sol Ruca, where it's like, oh, really? I didn't know that. And then seeing Scripps, like in the middle of all this black talent being celebrated, he's got this goofy mask on, just like that poor bastard. To celebrate Black History in a Dr. Doom mask.
Was it you or was it someone in the chat that was like, he looks like what's his face from Fat Albert with the mask?
No, I didn't say that, but that's hilarious. What was the guy's name? No,
that's Mushmouth. It's not Mushmouth.
Yeah.
It's the guy with the pink mask.
Yeah,
is that Mushmouth? Is that Mushmouth?
Is Mushmouth a different character than him?
Yeah, Fat Albert, pink mask.
That is so
cat.
funny.
Dumb Donald.
Dumb Donald. That's right. Okay. Oh my God. Was I on the show? I feel like I would have remembered that. That's hilarious.
I mean, that's like the sickest burn because it's so accurate, and I feel really bad for Scripps.
Reggie had a good thing
He's
going
phenomenal.
in terms of the trampoline. Even as Scripps, people pop when he does the flips and stuff like that. I don't know why this is what happened to Baron Corbin too. Baron Corbin was actually a hot heel. People legitimately hated him for the right reasons, and he was fine. But now they've done so many rebrands with him that people now just don't even care.
Yeah. So Lopez slapped Feroz after this, so they'll set something up with them. But let's talk about Gallus in the pub. I want to talk about coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like a guy bumped into Wolfgang and he smashed a glass over his head.
Yeah. The Irish APA.
Like, and that didn't seem like weird comedy. That was a little just sort of strikingly like unexpected brutality.
Yeah. I'm just glad they're finally doing something and telling us who Gallus is, because
yeah.
I mean, it's not that I have a problem with them being tag team champions, but they had them go over in this match where there's 3 other teams that were way more over than them and were clearly defined characters. But now that they have the titles, they're starting to tell you who Gallus is. I think they're doing it backwards.
Yeah. Well, Pretty Deadly's response, I thought, was really
good. And I like how it came right after this. This is really cool.
Yeah, and they're just unfazed.
Yeah.
You know, Kit Wilson calling Scotland a terrible country.
I would like to see a pub fight with Pretty Deadly and Gallus. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and NXT could absolutely do that. So Tiffany Stratton versus Katana Chance. Tiffany Stratton getting a pretty easy win now. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn did head down to ringside. They're going to be going for those tag titles soon. But Tiffany Stratton getting that win and saying that she's coming for the NXT Women's Championship. So yeah, they're calling it now for Stand and Deliver. Although, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think, honestly, I think Tiffany Stratton, Sol Ruca, there's a handful of women who, if they challenge for the title, should not lose for that title.
Yeah, they should hold off some of them. And I do think that it's tricky because Roxanne is still very new in her title reign. But I have no problem, especially if you're doing a short title reign, with it being a babyface who loses. The thing about babyfaces, and this is something that Dusty Rhodes was always very particular about, is that even him, babyfaces wouldn't hold on to the title for very long. They would get beat and then they would chase because the money is in the chase. So I'm fine with Tiffany Stratton winning that title at Stand and Deliver from Roxanne, even after a couple months. And yes, there was the finisher. She did do it on poor Katana's legs.
I saw that.
And they buried her on commentary. They're just like, oh, she didn't get all of that. They could have just said that she did it on her legs, so it makes it harder to kick out or something, or covered for her. But she drifted, and really, I'm glad that Katana was able to walk off and everything seemed fine.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And then we had Axiom versus Hank Walker.
This is fine. This is fine. This is a fine match.
Axiom is a cool gimmick, but they've given up on all the stuff that makes it cool. Or most of what made it cool. Well, I liked originally when they were doing the math stuff and trying to make him a little more like a superhero. Like now that he's just hanging out talking with people, they're making him look like Hurricane.
Right. And then he's like, gave him the attaboy after the match.
Yeah. Like a little more mystery would make him seem cooler, I think.
I agree. He should incorporate math into his wrestling moves. He needs to be doing like math equations and like we need to be seeing the overlays.
He should be yelling it out to the audience. Everybody, what's 8 times 8?
His whole offense, because you know how he does an entrance and you see like double Axiom and it's tracking. He should do that for the whole match.
Yeah. Okay, so the best idea we ever had on this podcast was with what was his face with the hoverboard, Marty McFly gimmick. Why am I already blanking on his name?
Kushida.
Yes, they should have done scenarios where Kushida traveled to the future and we saw a clip of like him winning, or he lost a match and then was going to travel back to the past to make it so he won. That is the biggest missed opportunity with an NXT gimmick.
I agree. That would have been so hilarious. They could have done a lot with that. Because then you really don't have to worry about continuity. You could just be like, oh, we'll just go back in time. Well, you can do anything you want.
It's brilliant. People complain on the new Quantum Leap all the time. They're like, well, the old series did this. And how come the new series it works this way? And it's like, because it's a time travel show. Shit changes. So Axiom won that match. And then the main event tonight, Carmelo Hayes versus Tyler Bate. Banger of a match that went over with Carmelo getting the win. But what'd you think about this?
Loved it. You know, you knew it was going to be good on paper. Very similar to the opener, where it's, you know, it's going to be a good match on paper, and then you see it, and it's excellent. I thought these two did a great job. Tyler Bate is in a weird spot because he just came back, but all he's been doing, really, mostly since he's come back, is just lose. So it's like he's in a holding pattern right now.
Yeah, I did think the opening match was a little bit better than this.
I do too.
Good, though.
I'm looking forward. I think Carmelo and Bron Breakker are going to tear it up, and I think Carmelo's going to win that match, as he should. But I think it's going to be a hell of a match.
Yeah. This was solid tonight. Roadblock should be an absolutely nothing show on the road to Stand and Deliver WrestleMania weekend. And they're making
I mean, maybe the results are going to be predictable, but I think, you know, Jacy and Gigi there's going to be a lot of emotion.
I'm saying it should have been a nothing show, but they're making this feel huge.
Yes.
Because think about what the Roadblock pay-per-view was on the main roster for all those years. It was like, well, we got to do something in March.
Right. No titles would change. It'd be like a glorified house show. You're right.
Yeah. But this is going to set in motion the plans for WrestleMania weekend. And I have a feeling this feels big, but if they do this right, it is going to make Stand and Deliver feel as big as WrestleMania if they up the stakes on everything.
Well, nothing's
pay off these storylines. No, it's going to feel for NXT fans. For NXT fans.
Sure.
It's going to feel as big as WrestleMania.
I agree. It could have a lot of urgency, and there's still plenty of time to build these storylines up. And a couple of the matches we already know, or at least we know it's going to be Bron and Carmelo, and they seem to know that it's going to be Tiffany Stratton and somebody at Stand and Deliver, whether it be Mako or Roxanne. So they're building toward it way out in advance, and I think that's really going to help this card.
And by the way, to
your get Shawn Michaels returning.
Yes, but your criticism, and it's valid, that you have to watch the show for it to feel that big. Let me just say that this is one of those WrestleManias this year, and they've had many of these. It's been a while since they had one that wasn't. This is another WrestleMania where if you don't watch the show, WrestleMania ain't going to feel that big to you this year.
Exactly.
Because if you don't know the storylines, I mean, if it was The Rock versus Roman, you don't need to watch the show. You can just tune in for that. But if you don't know Sammy and the Bloodline or Cody and like what he's been up to these last few years, like WrestleMania, I'm sure will be enjoyable, but you're not going to have nearly the emotional investment. Like it is. All of these shows are the payoff for people that watch week in and week out.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
Yeah. Well, one would argue there was once upon a time when WrestleMania didn't have to be that.
Right, but I would like if you look at the business that they're doing and some of the best WrestleManias, like financially from a box office standpoint, there was a big story that they build up, and WrestleMania was the payoff. And
they're on fire right now because the storytelling on the main roster is so good, and because Sami Zayn pops that 2.4 million rating.
Yeah, by himself. I keep believing
all
that.
Sammy.
Wait, Cody's going to be on SmackDown this week. We'll see what kind of number they do then.
We'll see. We'll see how much it dips.
Not that it makes any difference or it's going to put him in jeopardy or anything like that, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see.
Will it beat Power Slap this week? That's
I think they have a chance against Power Slap. I'll put that out there. I know it's a hot take.
Yeah, we'll see. But this is fun tonight. And I stand by it. NXT consistently the most entertaining wrestling program week in and week out.
It's good, man. I'm liking it, especially right now. I mean, Raw's been great with Cody. I mean, the 3 hours obviously is always long. I think SmackDown's been really good. But yeah, NXT's right up there.
Well, and I'll put it this way. Do I think the Bloodline story in and of itself is better? Yes, but that's the problem.
Right.
Because I'm looking forward to that. And then I sit through everything else. And it's like, oh, great, the fucking Viking Raiders again. You know, and it's just,
Yeah.
NXT level, a little more level, you know?
Where there's more things to look forward to.
Yeah, more to look for. Exactly. Exactly. Every time Tiffany Stratton shows up on screen, my wife has choice words.
Tiffany Epiphany.
Yes. Which I love that's becoming her thing.
Yeah.
Also kind of a ripoff of Blair from Facts of Life every time she would say her brilliant ideas. But solid. So follow Alfred. This is Nasty. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. Pour a little out for Scripps.
Please.
The character.
Free Scripps.
I don't even think he was on the survey I got this week from the fan council about wrestlers on NXT.
Oh, really?
That I like the best.
Well, maybe he got called back up, hopefully.
Yeah. I filled that out and they're like, do you want to add anything else? It's like Sami Zayn should wrestle for the world championship and win at WrestleMania.
I'm sure they got some of that. I'm sure that there's people who said that.
Yes, we're all secretly working for AEW. All of us.
You guys are all trying to sabotage Cody Rhodes. It's not happening.
Oh, we'll see. Tomorrow night, AEW Dynamite. We are back here on Friday for SmackDown and Rampage. See you all next time on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.